Probably when you did some research in the internet, or you have seen people mentioning these words, VTX, RX, Crossfire, what do they mean? The first thing you have to understand, if you want to use the DJI Airunit, like it has both inside, like the VTX and the RX. And what do these words mean? So VTX is video transmitter, and RX is like radio transmitter. And because we have seen, if you use the DJI controller and the goggles, both go over the Airunit, so you only have one tool. If you go with the option that you have for radio, so the controller with Crossfire, you have a Crossfire module, and then you have like the Vista or the Airunit for the video transmitting part. So you don't link actually the controller to the drone via Airunit or via Vista. That's important to understand. First, let's quickly compare Airunit and Vista. So the Airunit is more expensive. It's better cooled because like the case is bigger, and the Vista is less expensive and gets hotter. When you look at the different on the image quality, the Airunit has a little bit a better image quality. You just see in the goggles it's a little bit sharper, but still I used over the past months only the Vista because of its great features. So another difference there is when you use the Airunit, you can basically power it up to 4S directly, or you do it over the flight controller. With the Vista, you can basically power it directly up to a 6S battery. That means that the minus and the plus cable for the Vista, the direct power input, you can directly connect it to a 6S battery because it can handle it. If you do that with the Airunit, you're gonna smoke it, it's gonna die. So I really like this option. So image is almost the same. The Vista is much lighter. It's a little bit less image quality. Some people say there is less penetration. I mean, I flew really far, 4 or 5 kilometers, 6 kilometers, and I haven't had any issue with the signal strengths. But in closer fields with the Airunit, it's like the image quality is just a little bit better. For both, you can like do some, like they say, you can do some changes on the system that you get like more range or more output power. So basically the firmware on both is almost the same. What else? So the Airunit comes with 2 antennas, and the Vista only has 1 antenna. Why is that? On the Airunit, you basically plug in like the 2 antennas directly at the Airunit. For the Vista, there is like this UFL connector, so you have a pigtail, and then you basically put the antenna, like you have 1 antenna which you then put to that cable, or you connect directly an antenna, but you have only 1 antenna on the Vista and 2 antenna on the Airunit. But from a performance, I haven't seen a big difference. I just prefer the Vista because it's so much lighter, and also when it's so much smaller. If you look at how much space the Airunit needs, I just prefer the smaller one. One difference is on the Airunit, you can basically put an SD card inside. You cannot do that on the Vista. I also don't understand why I should put an SD card there, because I have anyway my GoPro there, and I have like an SD card in my goggles for the on-screen recording. So for me, I haven't actually used the SD card. I will explain in the part where I talk more about the flight controller and the ESC, the electronic power distributor. I explained there how you solder the parts of the Airunit, and now we're going to talk more about like the different options. So we said if you want to have a DJI controller and the DJI goggles, and you're going to link both, you actually don't need the Crossfire, and you both link it over the Airunit or the Vista. I personally prefer to have these kind of system independent, so one for video transmitting, the Vista or the Airunit, and then a specific for the radio, and that's where I use Crossfire. And what's the advantage there? Like Crossfire, that's what I've learned is like Crossfire, you have like this long range, like this 800 megahertz waves, and they just go like far. So a lot of people are convinced that with Crossfire you get more range, and also because the tool which basically handles the video image only has to do the video and not just like the radio. Nein, warte, ich muss nochmal anfangen. Wo bin ich jetzt gesehen? Du musst nochmal stoppen vielleicht.
Wir haben nur noch 5 Minuten Aufnahmezeit.
Yeah. So if you ask yourself how do you solder like the Airunit to the flight controller and power distributor, like the ESC, I will do that in the specific tutorial for FC and ESC. But what you have to understand, like also for the VTX and RX here is, so because you can use the Airunit and the Vista for both VTX and RX if you use the DJI controller. I personally prefer the Crossfire, and a lot of pilots they are convinced that with the Crossfire you just get more range for the controller, and it's also independent, so you don't have like RX and VTX, so video and radio, over the same technical component, which can be an advantage. So when we talk about Crossfire is for the radio. You have, compared to the DJI controller, you have a long wave. That's why also it's probably go further. I haven't tested the max, but I flew really far with the Crossfire and I made some good experience. So you're gonna have two different kinds of Crossfire modules, and I will also show a specific screenshot how it looks in the tutorial where I explain the flight controller and the electronic power distributor, the ESC. So on Crossfire, you can have like two modules. You can have the normal Crossfire, or you can have the diversity Crossfire. So where's the difference? Of course, there's a price difference. The diversity has twice the price of the normal one, but the big difference is you can get two antennas. So that's what I have here. I have one antenna in the back, and I have like one antenna horizontal. And why is that? The diversity is that the diversity module decides which antenna like gets activated. So if you fly far, it can be that this antenna is not in a good position because it gets blocked, or it just hasn't a good range. And that's why you put like one antenna like horizontal and the other like vertical, and with that you cover most of the ranges. So then the tools automatically switches like to this antenna or to that antenna, whatever gives the better signal. Then you can have, with the simple Crossfire, you just have basically one antenna, and you have to place that smart, either here, or you can have like the antenna going up. It should be ideally super like freestanding and not too close to electronic parts. To be honest, I haven't tested the max with the diversity or the normals, but I can tell you that with the diversity and even with the normal one, I flew extremely far. And you don't have to diversity just do a long range. Even you have like one antenna, like the cheaper Crossfire, placed at a good spot, you can fly so far. So when I talked about the antenna like needs to be mounted good, that's for example a great option where you have like the antenna, and that's only when you use one antenna. So the simple Crossfire module, you have one antenna, and that's a really good position, because if you look at the drone at all angles, it has like a good connection to my controller if you fly out far. And for the Crossfire itself, there's some configuration you have to do on your controller, and what I recommend is you can choose between 50 Hertz and I think over 100 Hertz or like 150 Hertz. So if you do long range, choose 50 Hertz, long wavelengths. If you care about latency, super like for short races, then I would go with 150 Hertz. And you also have to do the thing to cut off. Nein, ich kann mich nicht konzentrieren, wenn du rumhampelst.